fresh data contained in the Ghana Statistical Service 2022, 2023, 2024 first quarter trade vulnerability report has revealed that Ghana's total import bill went up by $100 million between the first quarter of this year and that of last year. Now, this comes at a time when the country is battling continuous exchange rate fluctuations as the cedi sheds more than 20% of its value against the American greenback in the retail market. Well, the reports indicate that significant decline in cocoa export inflows, which have been a reliable source of shelter for the cedi. Listen to government statistician Professor Samuel Kobna-Anim, who announced these statistics yesterday.
So between 2022 and 2023, we are recording about a 42.2 billion Ghana cedis from an exports point of view, representing 30% increase in our total exports between 2022 and 2023. From an import perspective, in 2023, the total value of our imports stood at 180.7 billion Ghana cedis relative to 148.6 billion Ghana cedis. Keep in mind the rate of growth for exports relative to the rate of growth for imports. I did indicate that the rate of growth for exports between 2022 and 2023 was 42.2 billion Ghana cedis, and in the case of imports, we were recording 32.1 billion Ghana cedis. So while we are seeing an increase in exports of 42.2 billion Ghana cedis between 2022 and 2023, in the case of imports, we saw a 32.1 billion Ghana cedis. So clearly, between 2022 and 2023, we were doing more on the side of exports than imports. The storyline slightly changes if you look at it from the US-denominated point of view. That is where we begin to think about the exchange rate implications on our external trade, both from an export perspective and from an import perspective. While we clearly saw an increase from both an export and an import perspective in the case of the Ghana cedi denominated, in the case of the USD denominated, we saw relatively a decline for both exports and imports between 2022 and 2023, specifically with exports declining by 0.8 billion US dollars relative to 2.0 billion US dollars between 2022 and 2023, increasing by about 3.4 percentage points over this time period. We turn the conversation to cocoa. As was indicated, while we saw a consolidation in the position of gold in the first quarter of 2024, in the case of cocoa, we saw a decline in its share by 8.5 percentage points. What is of importance to us is the performance of cocoa in the first quarters of the last 4 years. In the first quarters of the last 4 years, we have consistently seen that we get the largest return from cocoa in the first quarter of every year. In 2021, the highest was in the first quarter. In 2022, the highest was in the first quarter. In 2023, the highest was in the first quarter, averaging about 895 million US dollars for these quarters in the last 3 years.
Let me bring in data analyst here, Joy News, Isaac Ofeje, to get us more details about this. Let's start with Ghana's import bill for the quarter of this year. How did we jump to $100 million?
The most important aspect of the trade statistics that was released yesterday was the import bill, because we always say that we don't print dollars in this country, and so inflows are very important so as to also track the amount of dollars even in source of Ghana. And it's usually the import side that puts a lot of pressure on the available dollars. So we decided to compare the first quarter of last year to the first quarter of this year. And in nominal terms, the figure increased from an import bill of $3 billion to $100 million.
Kofi, you have to put position rightly for me, because I seem to be losing you there. And I know that we're doing a lot of focus on the topic, and what we are treating now is Ghana's import bill. We've jumped to $100 million between the first quarter of this year. Now, it comes at a time when the country is battling with inflation and the continuous depreciation of the cedi. And this is raising questions about how we're going to sustain our gains moving forward, because we have lost about 20% of our value against the dollar in the retail market. Kofi, whilst you position rightly for me, I would like to find out, this report focuses more on Ghana and our exports, especially with the cocoa industry, and why we are failing to export as much as we used to. Tell us more about that. Kofi, I'm asking, a lot of focus was put on Ghana's export and our cocoa sector. We are not exporting as much as we used to, and this is actually affecting our gains when it comes to the value of the cedi. Tell us more about this in the report.
Well, so the government statistician stressed on it, the importance of cocoa in terms of stabilizing the cedi, because if you do all the seasonalization in terms of the big guys that brings in dollars, I'm talking about gold, cocoa, oil, and others. It is cocoa that we can call one of our own, because whatever we get, we're able to keep more than 90% of it. And so when there's a drop in terms of the inflows, it becomes problematic and it affects the stability of the cedi. The reason why there's a big problem this time around is that if you compare the first quarter figures of each year, if you're comparing that of last year to that of this year, then cocoa inflows, or how much we used to get from cocoa, has dropped by more than $233 million. $233 million is huge if you compare it to how much we're even looking for from the IMF in terms of the third tranche. So it means that, to have a drop of $200 million from between last year first quarter and this year first quarter is really, really significant. To drop from an inflow of more than $800 million in the first quarter to now somewhere below $600 million, and that's a big problem.
In this trade vulnerability report, concerns have also been raised about the cedi and how it's going to affect trade moving forward. We also understand that Russia featured heavily in this report. What was the revelation?
Well, so the Statistical Service put focus on the key, import origins where we usually get our imports from. And as you can see, we've been tracking the top 5. And if you compare 2022 to that of 2023, there's a sharp difference in terms of the makeup of that top 5. At 2022, we had the first being China. China has been able to consolidate its position as number 1 in 2022 and also number 1 in 2023. But when it comes to 2023, there's a difference. And one country has been replaced. A country that used to be second in 2022 is no more in the top 5 list. I'm talking about UK, which has been replaced by Russia. Why is it so important to talk about Russia is because of the geopolitical tensions and the talk around Russia, and the fact that most of their goods flowing into countries, sanctions have been placed on it. And one of such commodity is oil and gas. But what we say is that that is the kind of good that we are actually importing from Russia, fuels and oil and gas, and it's been able to replace UK in the top 5 list, of course.
Kofi, thank you so much for your time here on NewsDesk. Let's do some...